Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Level Up and Live podcast. Our mission is to empower business owners to design a life they don't grow to hate without sacrificing health, relationships, spirituality through accountability, support, clarity, guidance, and community. Today's guest is flipping the script on traditional chiropractic care. Dr. Caleb Strunk, founder of Elevate Spine and Sport, is a rehab-focused movement expert on a mission to help achieve adults and athletes move better, feel stronger, and live pain-free. If you've been pushing through pain or stuck in survival mode, this episode is for you. Caleb, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man.
No doubt, man. Well, so at Level Up and Live, we start off with that 1-minute intro. So tell us your name, what you do, and why you do it.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Caleb, and I'm a chiropractor in the Woodlands, but I do things a lot differently than a lot of chiropractors and PTs do. And that all comes back to a story about my mom. And so when I was growing up, my mom always just dealt with back pain. It was a constant, she'd feel good and we're not worried about it, but then she'd have a flare up. She'd go to a chiropractor, PT, be some generic stuff, quick fix, and then she'd feel good again, and then it was back down, right? And it's just this up and down cycle. And this was about 5 years ago now. She had to have a surgery that could have been prevented beforehand. And if we just caught some things early on, had a little more in-depth of an assessment and had some complications with that. And she was actually left half paralyzed at the age of 50 from it. And so that just completely changed my life, changed my parents' life, changed their idea of what retirement's going to look like. It was definitely just the hardest thing I've had to go through and still battle with today. And so now I've made it my goal and my mission just to be the doctor and be the provider I wish my mom would have talked to 10 years ago, right? And I do that by helping active adults and golfers to not only understand why they're having their pain, but create an in-depth plan going step by step to get them confident again in the movements they want, but also a long-term solution to physical activity.
Man, your story starts with something personal. That's my first question I had for you. And I'm glad this transitioned perfectly and dives deep into exactly the why behind why you started your practice and your business. So watching your mom battle that pain without any answers, I know that causes probably frustration. And we as human beings, and even our listeners and audience and viewers listening to this, it doesn't have to just be in pain. It can be just any area of life, in business and in personal life, and not getting the answers that we seek or getting curious about is very frustrating. And so I have friends, and I'm excited about this episode. It's going to be a good one today because I have friends in my life that have pain, back pain. A lot of them have back pain, and I can't wait to explore your expertise in that because they have not been able to get the answers that they have seeked for. I have a friend specifically in mind that has literally spent thousands of dollars with doctors and seeking online help, and he still hasn't gotten the answers. And I've asked him how it's where he's at in that journey. And he said that he's reaching out to people in, I believe, Guatemala or some other country to be able to solve his back pain because nobody's able to give him the answers. Or if they have given him answers, it hasn't relieved his back pain. So I want to dive deep on how did that experience with your mom and where you are today shape the way you practice in your chiropractor, your business?
Yeah, so I just felt like there was something more, something different. Even when I was in school, before I was in school, or some of the mentors I had, it was insurance-based clinics, quicker stuff, which was fine, but that's kind of all I knew. Yeah. And then when everything happened to my mom, I was like, there's got to be something else out there. And I found somebody, he's actually in New Jersey, that just had a practice that was spending an hour with people and providing just the absolute highest quality of care that you possibly could. People doing in-depth rehab, able to look at every aspect of things. And so when I saw that, I was like, that's what I would want my mom to have, and a type of practice I would want her to go to. And so then I was like, how can I create that, right? Because what I do, it's very different, it's very unique. And so there wasn't even a ton to model it after, right? I had a couple examples, but a lot of it has just been me getting after it and doing it. Yes. And it's been very good and very fruitful because of that, because I've literally helped people all day long that are kind of just like your friend, right? I can think of a guy right now who early 40s, he had some blood work and all these things, like very good, successful business guy, crazy life. He's all over the place. And back pain was just affecting everything. And similar, he'd spent thousands in PT
Yes.
and there was just generic stuff, never got an answer. And for him, like once we took him through the very in-depth movement assessment, he did like a testimonial for me long after, and he's like, one of the best things about it was like I understood why I had it and I actually got results like really quick. And so it was just, it's cool to kind of hear those stories and see those people that are now coming in, and it makes the grinding days, the harding days
Yeah.
that much easier whenever it's like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I working a 12-hour day seeing
Yes.
all these people, right? And there's a bigger purpose behind it.
Yeah, this particular individual, he has been experiencing this for months and even if not years. And so we both know when you go through this, sometimes we neglect it because we're focused on these other priorities, especially if we're not making progress. And I told him, I sent him a text message yesterday. I said, I'm super excited. I'm meeting with Dr. Caleb Strunk on the podcast episode. He listens. He's an avid listener. And his name's Micah. He's a part of the mastermind group. And I said, man, I'm going to have to connect you guys because you need to go see Dr. Caleb. So I'll connect you guys behind the scenes. But so you're not just a chiropractor, right? You're a movement and a performance specialist is what I'm hearing you say. What's the biggest misunderstanding people have about chiropractic care, and how is your approach different?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that I face with people is when they think of chiropractor, they think like social media, like the loud cracks and pops, and just like all you come in and do is get adjusted, right? And there's a lot of places that are like that, right? Where you go
Yeah,
in, it's 5 minutes, you're on
that's
a
right.
table, and then you're out the door, right?
Yeah,
And so what I try to do, I'd like to say I combine like the best of chiropractic, trying to provide the best of rehab, but also the strength and conditioning portion of it too, combine it all into one, right? Because
mm,
some people will like do all three separate. It's like, well, we can just get that
yes.
all in one place, right?
Wow.
And so that's one of the biggest things I focus on. And I put a lot of time and effort. We talked about this when I was in school and beforehand to set myself up for that. Like I
Mm,
was spending so much time not getting paid for it just to be around like really good doctors and shrink coaches and learn and take all these courses when I had no money. And I knew like when I was doing that, like down the road, it's going to pay off, like being around these people and seeing the results they get with people. Right. And
yeah.
so that's, I think the biggest thing that I'll face is that's what people have the common like conception of, which,
Mm,
I would probably say 80 to 85% of like chiropractic is that. Right. And so
yeah.
that's one of my biggest jobs is to help people understand there's another option out there.
That's good. That's good. So your clients are often high performers and entrepreneurs and athletes, leaders. And I know just talking with you, you were even recently trying to niche down more into golfers because you just understand it. You enjoy golf yourself. We even have some listeners that are business owners and they play golf. So this is definitely relatable and resonate. A lot of times lower back pain.
Yep.
Why do you think so many of them wait until their bodies break down before they seek help? I love this question. I'm just curious for myself as well.
I think sometimes, like, I always wondered that too. I'm like sometimes I want it more for them than they want it for themselves. And I think sometimes I was listening to one of your podcasts recently about just from a business perspective. It's like I think people need to go through the crap and go through the down times before they realize like what it looks like, right?
Yes, yes.
But also too, I think sometimes people don't even. It's just like normal to them, like living with low level back pain, being out on the golf course, and it's just like, oh, I'm just getting older. It's like you're 40 years old. Like that's not an excuse, right?
Nope.
And so
That's
I
right.
think sometimes too, people don't know what normal is supposed to
Mm,
feel and look like in their health and what they can achieve, right?
yeah.
And one of the things too, I try to help people understand because I also see the backside of things where people wait around for too long, right? And then they're getting hip replacements, knee replacements. And when I'm having conversations with people about that, it's a lot harder, right? Because I had to set certain expectations. It's like things aren't going to be perfect. Now we can maximize it, right? And
Right.
we can do a lot with it. But when it comes to that, it gets a little harder rather than, those things don't just happen overnight. We don't just wake
Yeah.
up one day and need a hip replacement. It happens
Yeah.
in our 20s, 30s, 40s, even into our 50s as well. And so
Yes.
that's one of my biggest pushes too is like don't wait for it to just come around because if we don't take care of it, it will eventually come around.
Man, just in short 10 minutes. So I see here, and I also made a note in this, you've got over 400 hours of experience. And obviously, I can hear it in your voice. You're just so authentic, and you've got the experience, and you're living proof, and you're embodying what you're telling. And I've followed you on your socials and just seeing the things that you're putting out. You can tell you genuinely care. And I just don't see that with a lot of business owners these days. It's just more transactional. I got an opportunity to go to, somebody had got me a gift to go to the Joint here locally. And I went in and I just felt like I was a transaction, man. I was in and out within 5 minutes. I'm like, well, that was a quick $100. So what I'm hearing you say, man, you're just breaking everything down. You're educating the client, and then you're peeling back the layers and sharing the why behind that. I don't know if there's other places out there that are doing that. And I'm sure to your depth and your expertise, I think that's just, that's very rare. So keep up the great work. I love that. Now let's talk about root cause care. Why is it so important, and how does it relate to leadership and running a business from a place of strength and alignment?
Yeah, so I think from like a clinical perspective, why it's so important. So let's say you've got an example of back pain, right?
Yeah.
Most people will just treat the symptoms of it. They'll put like some ice and heat on it, do an adjustment, some stretches for the back. Well, what if it's actually coming from your hips because we just can't move very well, right? And if we
Mm,
never address that, like the
yeah.
back's not going to get better, right?
Yeah.
Because they sit so close to each other. And so I've just found time and time again, if we don't understand the why behind the pain, we're going to have trouble creating a long-term solution, right? And
Yeah.
there's 70 probably percent of people that you can just treat the back and it's fine, but there's that 30% category when it just keeps coming back, like there's more to it, right? And we've got to figure that portion of it out. And I think the same things comes with business too, right? I'm a big numbers guy, and it's like, okay, let's just break down the numbers, like what's happening, where are we falling apart, and if we can just fix one thing, how's
Mm,
that going to make a difference in our business? Same thing when it comes to health. I have a newer patient right now who trying like a million things. He's got all these exercises. He's saved a million things on Instagram. I'm like, hey,
yeah.
dude, like let's just do one thing. One
Yeah.
thing. We're focusing on one thing at a time. We're going to build off of it. And so I think the same thing goes for business too. Like from a business owner perspective, that's one thing I've learned is just to be hyper focused. Right. I think we talked about this. I like to think of it as like 90-day sprints. It's like,
Yeah.
what am I focused on in this quarter? Not a million things, but like, what's the one thing that's going to propel me the most?
It's brilliant advice, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're doing that in your practice and you're doing that with your clients, man, it's showing up in other areas of life. And I think I agree with you. That's brilliant advice. And for those listening to this, and viewers as well, man, rewind that, because right then and there, aligning that with who it is that you're trying to become in this every day, and then peeling back the layers, forward thinking, backwards planning is only going to be a catapult and catalyst to get to where you want to go. So we've talked about staying active, helping athletes, and you specialize in this, and obviously have put in the hours, put in the reps. For a business owner, somebody listening to this, Dr. Caleb, that is just constantly grinding, constantly just on the go 24/7. And I've been guilty of this, man, in my 20s, my teens, my 20s, and even early 30s. And I know what that leads to. What it leads to, if you're not reflecting on who you're wanting to become and correcting course, using as a GPS, it leads to burnout. It leads to fatigue. It leads to a lack of fulfillment. And what happens is that if we don't slow down to go fast, we end up typically head towards that burnout of physically and mentally. And I've worked with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs in the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm curious with you, what are some warning signs they are heading towards burnout physically and mentally for business owners and people that you work with?
Yeah, I think some warning signs: feeling just like exhausted, feeling drained, feeling like it's a chore, which there's times when it comes to exercise and doing rehab, it is going to feel like a chore, right? One of the
Yeah.
biggest things I've helped a lot of people recently on, because I've found this a lot over the probably last 4 or 5 months. I think one of my biggest jobs is just holding people accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because life's going to get crazy, and we start putting, the work life way ahead of everything else. And
Yes.
when that happens, like our social relationships start to go down, our physical health starts to go down. And I had a mentor tell me relatively recently, it's like the first two things should be your family and your health, like, and
Mm,
then business, everything on top of that, right? And
yeah.
so one of the biggest things I try to help people do to combat that is the first thing you do when you're planning out your week is just put your workouts on the calendar, right? And it doesn't
Yes.
matter where they are, but if it's on the calendar, it's going to get done versus if you kind of wait around and we'll see, we'll just try to squeeze it in. 9 times out of 10, that's not happening, right?
Yeah.
And so I see that a lot when it comes to burnout, but also kind of coming back to the root cause and the why portion of it.
Yeah.
I've seen it too. Is like if people don't understand why and it just keeps coming back, they're not growing in the gym, they're going to feel stuck, they'll get frustrated, and that's when people start to slip.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. I couldn't agree with you more. Show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. And so just making sure, I think it's so important too to what you're saying is you can be this expert and you can just dive deep and obviously you've got this, you're in this place of life where, in business owners listening to this as well, and I was guilty as charged, I was just so focused on what it is that I need to do on a daily basis. And I was aligned with who I wanted to become in my goals and the outcomes. And of course, what I was unaware of was the pride and ego that was striving towards that goal. And I didn't have other people to see. This is where I went wrong. I didn't have mentors or other people in my corner that had the authority or the safe place to be able to come in and say, "Hey, Sean, look at it from this perspective. What about this is a blind spot of yours?" Because when you're so, this, when you're so focused in the first 3 years of business, 5 years of business, you're focused on what, bringing in cash flow, bringing in customers, marketing, sales, but you're neglecting everything around you. And whether that's your pain in your body or working out, like you said, or structuring this calendar. But what I have found is when you have a community of like-minded business owners that are able to kind of share different perspectives and different blind spots, man, it just makes all the difference in the world. And to me, that's leveling up and living your best life and aligning with the things that are important to you. Now, one of the things that I've learned is, and being a student of the game, my dad, early stages, we always hear the saying, "No pain, no gain." And so a lot of leaders wear that pain like a badge of honor. What would you say to someone who's listening to this who thinks they don't have time to slow down or address that nagging pain they've been ignoring but they know about? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, and I think like I mean, it's very easy to just get caught up like early on and just every day, 12 hours a day, nonstop, 24/7. And I've seen it in my own self, like it's just gonna lead to burnout, right? You
Yeah.
gotta have some bigger purpose behind it. And so I think kind of coming back to like just having things on the calendar set in stone, having your priorities and thinking, okay, what's the purpose of this business too? Like why do I want to do this? Like who's it for? Like for me, it's for my family and my future family. And so just setting it up for the light that I want for that, making sure like the business is a way to provide my life, not the other way around. Right. And
Yeah.
so just making sure that's always a priority. And I think it's okay to work a lot, grind, and do things like that. But I feel
Yeah.
like for me, for example, on like a Saturday or a Sunday, like Sundays is a great example. Like I'll go to church, I spend time with my wife, I kind of just reset, but I'll
Yes.
wake up at 5 in the morning
Yep.
and work for 3 hours and I
Yes.
just get everything done before I do it. Right. So that just tells like, where's my priorities at? And so, like we talked about a little earlier, it's like, show me your calendar, show me your life. Right. So I think
Yep.
a lot of it still comes back to that too. And just taking a step back and saying, why am I doing this? Where are my priorities at? And how do I make sure I'm avoiding burnout from that?
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. That's brilliant advice. And you can hear it in people's voice, how they show up. What's you can tell from the indicators, vitality, bliss. Are they joyful? Are they happy? And so we're all in this. For me, I'm very big on conserving my energy with my priorities and aligning with what allows me to fulfill and do the things that I enjoy doing, podcasting and leading a mastermind group or private coaching, or so working out, exercising, these things, family, church, all these things fulfill me and reset, recover, so I can show up that 10.0 version of myself when I meet that client or that customer. And that's what I'm hearing you say. And that right there is living a purpose-driven life. And then it's going to change over time. That's the beautiful thing about it. You're going to align. But if you've got nagging pain, and I know you probably work with a lot of high achievers, to me, you can have everything going correctly. You're killing it in business. You're killing it at home. You're doing great in your health and fitness. But if you got a nagging pain, dude, you've only got one goal. That one goal is to get that pain to go away,
Yep. Yep.
right? And so I think that's fascinating. And then so now it's time to make that a priority and do everything that you possibly can. Pray about it, get curious, ask questions, reach out to individuals like you. And I highly just recommend doing that. So you had mentioned accountability earlier. What I have learned in the last 2 or 3 years is that accountability is probably one of the top three fundamentals, principles, anybody listening to this should have in their life. There's three levels of accountability: accountability to ourselves, accountability partner, like a coach or a mentor or a community, or accountability to your community. So basically, you going out and you saying, I'm going to help 1,000 customers this year. And so you're going to let the community know. And so they're going to hold you accountable because you're making it public. But let's dive deep on that accountability. You had mentioned that you had been working on accountability with your clients. Can you dive deep on that, on how you hold your clients and customers accountable in your
Yeah, I
business?
think one of the biggest things, like why I've started to do this so much over the last probably 3, 4 months, is like I've had to do that in my own personal life too.
Yeah.
Like I am in a mastermind specifically for like PTs and chiropractors. I'm held
Yep.
accountable by people in that. I've
Yep.
got my like own just like a personal like coach too that's holding me accountable, making sure I'm doing the right things. And I
Yep.
just saw the change that made in me, both from a personal but also a business, and like the fruitfulness of that. And the biggest thing too, like I think about this way, it's like when my business is doing well, it means I'm helping more people, right?
Yes.
And so
Yep.
it's a double down on that.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like my patients, one of the biggest things I'm doing is saying, hey, I'm holding you accountable to 2 workouts this week, or holding you accountable to doing your homework exercises 3 times this week, right? Or we need to go get lab work done, like it needs to get done like now,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
so things like that, having just somebody, I always like joke with them. I'm like, I just want you to be doing these things, and I'm just like in your ear throughout the day, right? Like I just want you thinking about me. I tell you, like I want you to overthink about things early. That way, it just becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a big thing I do, which the way I've structured my practice and business allows me to do that, right? Where I've got more time. I'm not just seeing people for 10 minutes. And because then it'd be hard to do that, right? How can I keep up with everybody? So a busy day for me is seeing 6 or 7 people, right? And so when I can do that, it takes me 30 minutes just to check in and say, like, hey, how's this going? What's going on here? How are we feeling? Is this good? Is this bad? And just making sure people are changing their habits and their lifestyle with things, right? Like I just
Yeah.
recently this week got somebody back into the gym for the first time in 6 months.
Awesome.
And when they're like working with me, it's like, there's a purpose behind it. There's accountability behind it. And I want people to like be done with me and just have changed their overall lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the ultimate goal behind it.
Yeah, speaking of process and accountability, let's walk through that. What does your, because we fall to the level of our systems and processes, which start building our discipline and habits. What does your process look like when someone walks into Elevate Spine and Support, walks into the office, open up the door? How do you go from assessment to long-term sustainable results with them?
Yeah, so my process is a little different. So I start people just with a phone call, like something like this, about 20, 30 minutes. And the whole purpose of that is just to hear, okay, what's going on? What's your health history? What have you tried before? Where are you struggling at? What are your goals? And see if like what we do is a good fit. Because I always tell people too, we're the perfect fit for the perfect person. We're not for everybody, but I'm perfect for the right person. And so that call is just to determine that. And then I bring people in for an assessment. It's completely free, just so we can see, okay, what's going on? Why is it happening? And then confirm even more, are they in the right place, right? Because I've had to bring people in for that assessment and then send them out somewhere, right? That's
Mm,
like one of my biggest jobs as a provider is, okay, where does somebody need to go? But if they're in the right place, I'm going to make sure they know that.
yep.
And then from there, I bring them in for a treatment session. That way they get to see what it looks like. And then I also could see how they respond to treatment too, because everybody responds so differently. And that'll tell me, okay, where do I need to go with this case? How do I develop out a plan? I'm going to write it all out, detail it, and then get people onto a plan. And I always like with these plans, kind of compare it to like building a house, right? At first, we've just got to get a foundation up, put a bed
Yeah.
in, be able to sleep, right? Same thing with our body. Then we've got to make it a strong foundation because in life, storms are going to happen. Like life gets crazy, kids jump on you, grandkids jump on you. And
Yeah.
so we want to be ready for that, but then just integrating it all back together and into your lifestyle and into the things you want to do. And so that's a kind of like a quick overview version of kind of how I take my process from start to finish with people. And then I would say even then too, towards the ends, like people will stay with me just
Mm.
for that accountability, right? And it's,
Yes.
maybe it's once a month, once a quarter, like
Yep.
we kind of figure that out from there. But they're like, I've made all this progress. It's going amazing.
Yep.
Like, I just need you to hold me accountable, make sure I don't stop. And that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I have found as well is like people struggle with accountability, even high achievers, business owners, and I think we all do to a certain degree. And even myself, 3 years ago, when I first called up and started the mastermind group, I remember having the conversation. At this point, I was all in isolation by myself. My ego and pride was in the driver's seat. And I remember talking to this other guy across the table, and he asked when we were wrapping things up in the 60-minute session, he goes, all right, well, Sean, how can I hold you accountable this week? And it was the first time somebody had ever asked me that question. And my response was, I don't need to be held accountable.
Yep.
I look back and I laugh at that. I'm like, that is an awful mindset, right? We all, I don't care who you are. If you're the president of the United States, we all need accountability. And there's
100%.
3 levels. And so, because it only allows you to, level up and live that best life, because none of us are perfect. We're just imperfect action takers. And so I agree with you, man. If you're a business and you're a business owner listening to this, the accountability for the customers is next level. And with you just diving deep on the intimacy with these customers and molding their plan and personalizing it to them, it's just very rare. And I resonate so much with what you're doing and building at your practice, because we do the same thing at the insurance company. And I think it's the right customers that will come into your firm that believe in that. And of course, the flip side of that is you'll weed out a lot of people that aren't meant for that quality of work. They're just wanting the
Yep.
transactional. Yeah. So I wanted to dive a deeper on the everyday adults that golfers. So I know this is kind of like where you're trying to pivot possibly. And if we have any golfers listeners out there, this one's for you. On the golfers, what are some of the biggest movements? And it don't even have to be just golfers, right? It can just be anybody that's working out, exercising. I'm actually one of our members that just joined at the Level Up Live Mastermind group. He's killing it in business. He's doing great in family, and he's struggling with the health and wellness. And he hasn't worked out in, he said, months, if not years. So he just started recently working out with me. We've been doing some calisthenics. And one of the things that I noticed when we're doing push-ups, when we're doing squats, and just doing these basic calisthenics and workouts, is that his mobility is not great. So I'm curious, what are some of the biggest movement or mobility issues holding leaders, business owners, athletes back in performance and energy that you have found?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the person, kind of what they're doing as a whole, too, right? Because from a golfing perspective, and that's one of the things I found too, and like why I've gotten into like the niche of golfing, it's because I'm a big golfer myself. I love to golf. I watched all the time, and I just found there's a lot of people that like say they treat golfers, but like don't know the intricacies of it. Like you say the word backswing, they're like, "What is that?" And so when it comes to golfers, it's just like understanding those small things. And so with golfers, there's two really big things. And I would say majority of people too, I'm always looking at the hips, right?
Mm,
Because
yep.
so often from a mobility perspective, like we get locked up through there. We're not moving very well through there. I think people want to like just do like the low back and they're just doing mobility for the stretches for the low back. Well, the low back is actually something that needs to be stable versus our hips are joints that need to be mobile, need to be moved. And from a golf perspective, each and every swing, we have to rotate through our hips. And when we don't, the back's going to make up for it. The knee's going to make up for it. Maybe our neck makes up for it. If something's not working, somewhere down the chain is going to start to like cause pain, right?
Mm,
And it might not be kind of talking about the root cause. That might be where people start to lack. And so the
mm,
hips are always something I'm looking at, especially with people sitting all day too. We're sitting in the same position over and over again. Just doing the opposite of that, right, can be so helpful. I would say another one that I commonly see too is the middle portion of our back,
mm,
being able to extend open back. Just because, like I said, so many people are in this like forward position, whether we're on our phone, we are at a desk, we're in the car, we're just sitting in this slump forward position. So often our body just wants to do the opposite thing, right?
Yeah.
It wants to move in a lot of different ways. It doesn't like to get stuck in one position. And so sometimes just doing the opposite, and it can take 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes out of our day just to do the opposite movements, stretch in that way can go a long way. But also with those people too, making some lifestyle changes, say, okay, let's say we're sitting at a desk for 8 hours. Well,
Yeah.
can we get a standing desk? And can we make it like a 50-50, like 30 minutes stand, 30 minutes sit? Can we
Yeah.
take a little break in between, right? I think it's those things specifically because everybody's body is so different. Because I mentioned the hips, for example, right? Well, sometimes I'll get people come in and they're like, oh, my hips are so tight. And it's like they're extremely mobile. They've got too much range of motion, right?
Wow.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you actually just need to strengthen this. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where it comes to understanding some of the intricacies of it, going in depth with people. Because that's where people get stuck when it's like, what's the one thing? It's like, well, something that might work for you might not work for me.
Mm.
But from a general guideline perspective, I'm always looking at the hips, especially for low back stuff, because
Yeah.
the hips lead down to the knees, lead up into the back. And so that's probably the first thing I'm checking on a lot of people.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So if you had, let's say in the last 30 days, let's say 50 customers, 50 clients that you've seen, out of those 50 clients, are they coming to you? We can talk new clients. Are they coming to you because they're already in pain or are they trying to prevent pain? What is that mix there? And then
Yeah, I would probably say majority of people, probably 80% of people are coming to me with pain.
with pain. Wow.
Yeah, and now it might be like lower level. I would say majority of people aren't coming to me like 10 out of 10 pain, can't walk type of stage. Usually like might get a steroid shot or might
Yeah.
try something else to calm it down a little bit. But majority of people I see have had like pain for a while, chronic pain. It's just low level and nagging, right?
Yeah.
It's just constantly there. It's not necessarily stopping them, but maybe they're hesitant from doing what they really want to do. But they can still move around the house and do stuff. It's not like they can't walk. And so
Yeah.
that's the majority of people. But I do get some people too that it's just like, hey, I'm starting to get older. I want to learn these things. I want to be preventative about this. I want to learn how my body moves, mobility aspect. I have a lady right now, very high level golfer, and that's our big purpose working with her is just like, okay, how can we get your body moving better, moving more efficiently? That way, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road from now, you're still moving effectively.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And what I'm hearing you say is, so if it's out of those 50 customers, 80% or so are coming through with pain, they're searching for answers. With those individuals that come into there, somebody listening to this that is that opposite 20%, is this practice and firm that you're and your expertise, is this for everybody? Do you recommend? Because I'm a big believer in preventative. Like I'm the 1%er. I know I have a lot of listeners as well. It's like, how can I prevent, from the 80% of me being in pain? I want to prevent. So I do cold plunges and saunas and all these little bitty things, supplements that's 1%, right? They're not 10, 15, 20%. They're just 1% and allow me sleep, nutrition, all these things because I can have 15 different goals, but if I'm in pain or if I'm sick, I have one goal, and that's
Yep.
to get well, as you know.
Yep.
So I'm curious, do you still recommend people that are maybe like me that aren't experiencing pain and have an understanding of mobility and stretches and have sleep, nutrition, all these things dialed in to still come routinely into a practice and firm like yours?
Yeah, 100%. I think it depends too. Like I'll talk to people, and especially when I bring them in for assessment, one of the things I'm looking for with people like that when they're not in tons of pain is, okay, do we have some of the same like signs and symptoms, same movement effectiveness that some of people with chronic pain have, right?
Mm.
And one of the things I'm looking for is I call them like yellow flags. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what's maybe not normal here and what could lead to an injury down the road if we don't like be ahead of it, right? And like I
Yeah.
had a guy not too long ago was coming to me with a little bit of like back pain, but not really, more so just from a golf mobility perspective.
Mm.
And I was like looking at his hips and it was like really bad, like
Mm.
early 30s, like couldn't
Wow.
move very well. But he didn't know that either. Like even doing simple movements like a hinge as like an RDL, like struggle with it a lot. And it was a little bit of like a hard conversation. But I was like, look, man, I was like, I'm glad we haven't had pain. I'm glad nothing has shown up before. But at the same time, too, these are things I've seen in some of the people that have had chronic pain before, right? And so taking care of it that way, you don't ever get to that stage where you have low back pain and all these flare ups. Like, just take care of it now, right?
Yeah. Wow, man. Dr. Caleb, this has been probably one of the fastest episodes out of 150 plus episodes that I've ever done. What a smooth conversation, man. You have dove deep. I really appreciate you. And we are about that time, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I
Yeah.
love talking about it and love talking about through all this stuff. I got two passions, health and business.
I
So
love it, man. I can tell, and I know our listeners and audience and viewers can tell as well. So I'm definitely just going to be one of those where I'm going to go back and listen to it again, send it to the people that are in my life that may be experiencing some of that pain, and then also preventative. Final question for you, brother. You've been nothing but awesome and excellent today. You have executed. You have brought nothing but value for our listeners and audience. And I know it's going to impact hundreds and thousands of people in the coming future. So with that being said, man, how can our community at Level Up and Live, how can we support you?
yeah, well, I appreciate that. Number one, I think two things. I'm always on Instagram, like each and every day. I'm posting different tips and tricks and things like that. I like have conversations with people all day long, helping them out with certain things. And the next step after that is just a phone call. Like I said, it's completely free. It's like 20, 30 minutes. You can fill out the form in my Instagram or on my website as well.
Okay.
And we'll just find a good time to talk through everything, see if what we're doing is a good fit. If not, like I'm gonna make sure you get to the right place too. But also just hear your story, hear what's going on, what your goals are, right? Because everybody's got goals other than I just want to get out of pain. It's like, well, why do we want to get out of pain? And so
Yes.
understanding that and kind of going deeper into that, that's the whole purpose of that phone call. So those would probably be the two biggest things as far as like an immediate action versus Instagram, just everyday tips, always posting something on there.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I've looked at some of your work and I know you're in depth and you even, I think, have taken some clients through some of the, different stretches and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. So definitely go give Dr. Caleb Strunk a follow on Instagram, and we'll also have the links in the show notes for easy access as well. Well, Dr. Caleb Strunk just reminded us that how you move through life literally matters. Pain is not a personality trait, and grinding through it doesn't make you strong. It keeps you stuck. If you're a leader, athlete, or a business owner tired of hitting the same physical wall, it's time to stop treating the symptoms and start solving the root. Visit Elevate Spine and Sport and stop living on the sidelines of your own life. Share this episode with someone who is overdue for a wake-up call. Rate and review the podcast because this is how we grow and serve back, impact more people. Book that appointment you've been putting off because real leaders don't just push through the pain, they fix it. See you next week. Stay strong, stay sharp, and keep leveling up and living your best life.